Hey guys, welcome back to the MCU HQ. This is my non-spoiler video on episode 4 of WandaVision. I meant to have this up earlier today, and I'm not entirely sure why I didn't, but it's up now, so enjoy. If you have not seen the episode, this is non-spoiler. My spoilers will be up tomorrow. So let's get into this episode. And right off the bat, this is kind of maybe hard to talk about non-spoiler because a lot of stuff happened in this episode. This was the episode of answers, and just the episode's 35 minutes long, and we just get 35 minutes of answers. So this episode does do a perspective shift. If you've seen it in the promos, if you've heard it in interviews, and you know, episode 4 was a perspective shift. We got to see some of the stuff happening outside of the sitcom. And something this episode did really well is it didn't focus just on outside the sitcom. Yes, that was the main plot was outside of it. But it still propelled the story inside also. So both stories propelled forward. Again, answered a lot of questions. It actually hops back a bit in time to around the time that the show would have started for us, the viewer, when we saw episode 1. It hops back to around that time, so we can see how characters outside, how we can get some answers of how things outside were affecting the sitcom. And this episode really just runs parallel those first 3 episodes. So the idea is that the end of this episode matches up. The end of this episode ends just a few minutes after the end of episode 3. So we really get answers and explanations for everything that we've seen so far. But that does not mean every question's answered. Because they're not. So, still questions by the end of it, but man, a lot of answers, a lot of explanation. I really like it. Most of the small questions get answered. It's just the really big idea questions that still linger that we'll eventually get answers for. And so with that, with seeing real world, that means we are seeing post-Endgame, right? Jumping back into that instead of going into this alternate reality connects the show to previous MCU movies and different events that happen. It's not just through character connections. We get references to certain events. We get to see the return of characters and what happened to certain other characters, why they might not be here, what was happening between time jumps, all that. So we get a few little puzzle pieces that are all attached to the MCU puzzle. We get it to slot in a couple more pieces of that. And yes, there are several returning characters in this episode. You've all seen the end of episode 3. You know what happens at the end. Geraldine gets thrown out of the reality, so we do end up getting to pick back up with her. We see what's going on with her. Couple other characters. You know who they are. It's not a spoiler. They're in marketing. They're in the cast. They were in interviews. Kat Dennings, who played Darcy, and Randall Park, who played Jimmy Woo from Ant-Man and the Wasp. They're in this show. We see them pop up in this episode. And it's always great to see returning characters, no matter how small of a role they are, no matter how insignificant they have been to the story thus far. It's really cool to see certain characters like them come back. Overall, great episode. My favorite one yet. I love how it combined both elements of, the show of real world and sitcom. It's a nice bridge to this next part of the show. The first 3 episodes that were entirely in Westview, in that sitcom, they felt very much like they were setting things up, establishing things. Yes, they had some hints, but for the most part, they were just establishing. And then this episode seems like a nice bridge into the big story that is going to be told going forward through both of these plot lines. So guys, have you seen WandaVision episode 4? Let me know what you thought of the episode down in the comments below. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a good time. I will see all of you in my spoiler video tomorrow where I break down every aspect of the episode. Leave a like on this video, subscribe, click the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCU HQ. That's going to be it. Have a great day, guys.